Hey everybody, let me know that you can see me. Looks like once again YouTube changed things around a little bit. So let me know in the chat if you can see me and can you hear me? YouTube is always making changes, gotta love it. All right, awesome. Glad to see you guys here. Once again, welcome, Right Riders. Thank you so much for joining me on today's live stream here on a Wednesday. And if you're catching us on the replay, we're sorry we missed you, but thanks for tuning in. There's going to be some timestamps down in the bottom, and so you can see exactly when you can jump to the exact content and to the Q&A portion. Now, whether you are a new author publishing your very first book or you've self-publishing books for years, there's probably a really good chance that you or someone that you know have fallen victim to one or maybe more of these self-publishing mistakes that I'm going to talk about. Today, I'm going to cover 5 very common publishing mistakes and one what I like to call super bonus mistake. But first, I do want to check and see who's in the chat. I see Stacy's in the house, Steve Martin, Terry's here. Glad to have you guys here. Andy W. 2 thumbs up. I hope those thumbs up mean that you're feeling better there, Andy. So I know you guys have been here. Christopher's in the house. I want to know from you, what are some of the big mistakes that you've seen authors make, or maybe you've made them yourself? Nobody's perfect. I make mistakes all the time. I try to learn from them. More importantly, I try to teach others so they can learn from them. Let's see. Andy, yes, you cut alive. Christopher's in the house. Christine. Terry, love that. Poetry from the Heart. Hello. Glad to have you here. And let me know where everybody's from. I like to see where, like I'm from Connecticut, and then when I was 9, I moved to Florida, and now I live here in Missouri. So I've been in many different states. Where are you watching me from right now? Let me know in the chat. And if you're watching this on the replay, let me know in the comments. So I want to get this started. The video is probably going to be shorter, more like a 30-minute, but it all depends on the Q&A period. So the very first mistake I've seen authors make, and I've made myself, is not researching the niche. And when I say researching the niche, I don't necessarily mean just, the page count and the price point that your customers are used to. I'm talking about things like your cover. Does your cover fit in with your niche? I mean, you can spend $500 on an amazing cover, but if it doesn't fit in with your niche, it's money wasted, to be honest, because it needs to make sure that it's something that is going to resonate with your ideal reader. As an example, if you are in the highly competitive science fiction or military science fiction, if you don't have some kind of battle and ship going on your front cover, chances are no one's going to look at your book in that niche. So you can have an amazing cover, but maybe it's for a different niche. So you need to make sure before you even have that cover created, whether you do it yourself or you hire somebody, that you look at your niche and you see what the competition has, because that tells you what your clientele, what your readers are looking for. Obviously, focus on the books that are probably in the top 20, top 30, because those are the ones that you're really going to have to try to compete with. And if they're that popular, then they're doing something right on their cover, because that gets people to click to begin with. Also, when it comes to the interior, when it comes to whether you're doing a children's book, a picture book, or if you're doing just a novel, or maybe even no content, low content books, one thing I've seen people do too many times, and this goes along with the not researching your niche, is they write and create a book for themselves. Now, if you are your ideal audience, then that may work out. Like, for example, with no content books. Many of the books I've created have been created based out of necessity. But especially when it comes to written content, there's absolutely nothing wrong with writing what you love. And I probably should have caveated this to begin with. Many, if not all of these tips that I'm going to give and mistakes in air quotes, it all depends on what your goal is as an author. If your sole purpose of writing and publishing a book is just because you wanted to get that book out there, out into the world, and get it published, then that's fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But my assumption that I'm making when I made this list is that your goal is to sell some books. Whether you want to sell millions or you want to sell a couple, if your goal is to sell books, then you really want to keep in mind these mistakes that I point out. So getting back to the issue of writing what you want and not necessarily what your readers are looking for. If you aren't writing something that is compelling and something that your readers will be interested in, it's going to be a lot harder for you to get those sales. Now, I'm not saying it's not possible, obviously, because there's something for everybody, but if you do some research within your niche, you can better your chances of getting those sales by giving them what they're looking for. Now, I'm not really talking about write to market, which I can do a whole nother video on writing to market. For those of you who may not know, real quick, writing to market is where you do research, you find a niche that has a readership that is hungry for more books, but that doesn't have a lot of competition. And so then you go in there, you write that book that will fill in that gap, and then that's what writing to market is. What I'm talking about is you can write to market, but still pick something that is still near and dear to you. So it's something that you can do long term. It's a lot harder to stick with something if you're not interested in it. So again, for that first one, talking about not researching your niche, I'm talking about the content. Is it something that your readers for that niche are looking for? Your cover, is that something that fits in with that particular niche? As well as, like I said, you want to check competition on price point and average number of pages, so you're within the realm of the norm for what your readership is looking for. So number 2 is not preparing your audience ahead of time. And this has to do with promotion. If you wait until you do your cover reveal, or worse, you wait until launch day to let everybody know that your book exists, you're too late. The chances of you having a super successful book launch is going to be pretty small. It's a pretty small chance, because you need to build up that hype ahead of time. How soon? The moment you start writing that book, the moment you have the idea, you should at least put something on your social media pages, maybe your email list. Hey, I just had a great idea for a book. I'm going to start writing it, and just give them like a brief synopsis of what you envision your book to be. Just real brief. Doesn't have to be super lengthy, because people these days don't really have a lot of time and patience to read anyway. But something short, right off the bat, get people talking about it, get people thinking about it. And then as you progress, whether it's, hey, just finished chapter 2, just finished chapter 20, and then when you do your covers, have more than one cover made. Post it on your social media or in your email list, and get people's opinions of those. Which cover do they like best? You may already know which cover you're going to go with, but by making them feel important, making them feel engaged, that draws even more interest into your story, and they want to learn more about it. So that's actually going to lead me right into my next one, which is being stuck on the title. I've seen this happen. I've done this myself, where you come up with a book, you know what the title is going to be, and then you write the book and you keep the exact same title. Now, chances are, yes, it's possible that title may be the perfect title for it. But just as you edit your book, you need to consider editing that title. Your book changes, your title may as well. Here's a perfect example. I'm a Star Wars fan, and if you're a Star Wars fan, let me know. But one thing that a lot of people don't know is that Return of the Jedi originally was called Revenge of the Jedi. and they did some early trailers and posters and stuff like that, and the viewers didn't like it because a Jedi shouldn't be out for revenge. That goes against, the whole aura of what a Jedi is. So they changed Revenge of the Jedi to Return of the Jedi, and everything was as it should be. So the same thing can be said about your book title. What I've done, and this has been very successful, is I have a book title in mind. But when I send out my book to beta readers, before it's even finished, and I send out to beta readers, I ask them what they think a good title should be. Completely unaided question. Just, read the story, let me know what you think a good title would be. And then I take those, and I've learned from those. Some I've actually gone with, but what I've done is I've sent that out to my email list and to my social media, and I said, okay, here's a list of some titles. What do you think would be a great title for this book? And use that to tie in and decide what title I may actually go with. So again, it's not unheard of to change your title, and that's okay. Let's see. Number 4, doing too much yourself. I have definitely fallen victim to this. Whether it comes to doing the cover, doing self-editing, you can't do it all. There's only so much time in a day. And I understand that, especially when you first start out, that money may be tight. Trust me, I do this part-time, so I know about being on a budget. But you can get good covers made for $5 or $10. And when it comes to editing, getting a professional editor is much more expensive, but there are ways around that. One is you can do piecework. You can send out, just one chapter at a time, and just get that one part edited, if that's all you can afford. But maybe you can't afford any of it. Well, then you do what I've done numerous times, and I've talked about on this channel, and I've talked about on other channels, is you do barter. That's why networking is so important. If you're not a member of the Self-Publishing Today Facebook group, then you really should go check that out. And I'll leave a link in the show notes. But go check out that. There's other ones like Dale L. Roberts and Kelly publish. They have theirs, which I'm a member of as well, and that's Self-Publishing Books. The important part is get into a mastermind. Just get into some kind of networking with other like-minded people, and then you take what you're good at and you find out someone who is better at something that you are not as good at, and you can just exchange. Maybe someone will work on your book cover for you, and you'll format their book for them for KDP. Which, if you don't know how to format books, I've got videos on that as well, so you can check those out. But so it doesn't have to always come down to having a ton of money. But you absolutely need to focus on what you do best, and that will help streamline your business, and then try to find others to help you out with the other aspects that you're not as great at, that you're a little bit weaker at. Now, I know if you're doing no content, low content books, you're probably saying, Keith, none of these are for me. And that's not true. Because when I say editing, it doesn't necessarily mean editing the words. Having someone else look, even if you just have a line journal or you have a diary, having somebody else look at it, then they might be able to, hey, these lines are a little off, or it would be better if you put this over here and this here. Just getting a second set of eyes on your work can only help the end product. So, and which makes it more acceptable to your clientele, which is your readership, and betters your chances of getting more sales. Now, here's my 5th and final tip before my super bonus tip, and it is rushing things. I've seen so many authors rush through. I got to get all this done before 4th quarter, or depending on what your niche is, I got to get all this out before such and such a date, before school starts, whatever. Okay, I am all for setting goals and setting challenges for yourself, but never, and I repeat, never should that jeopardize the quality of the content, whether it's the interior, the cover, whatever. The blurb on the back, nothing should be rushed. Now, I'm not saying take 5 years to write a book. What I'm saying is set manageable goals to yourself, and not only a large goal, but what does it take on a daily basis or a weekly basis to meet that goal? And, it's ironic that this is November. NaNoWriMo is a perfect example of that. NaNoWriMo, 50,000 words in 30 days. That sounds like a huge challenge, which it is. But if you move that down into bite-sized daily word counts, it's a lot more manageable. And that betters your chances of meeting your end goal. So again, don't rush things just to meet a goal, just to meet a timeline. Now, I am going to check the chat. I see it going crazy. But first, I wanted to go over my super bonus tip, which this actually probably should be in red, and it is the biggest misconception that I've seen first-time authors make. And usually it only happens to first-time authors, and that is thinking that once the book is finished, that your job is done. Not even close. To me, the writing and the publishing of the book, that's the easy part. It's the promotion and marketing and everything else that comes after that. That's where the real work comes in, at least for me. Now, you may be someone who's a salesperson at heart and you love that part. But just to think that once you've written it and published it, that's all you have to do. Again, if you really want to sell books other than just organically, then you really need to put more into it after your book publishes. So those are my 5 what I call book blunders, and then the 1 super bonus tip. Let me know if there's a mistake or a book blunder that you've made or you've seen somebody make that I didn't cover. But I think those were the most common ones that I found. So I'm going to check out the chat and see who all has added in. Let's see. Christine, you feel so special. I said your name. Absolutely, every single one of you are special. Like I said, I've said this 100 times. I'll say it again. You guys are my second family. So guys and girls are my second family. So absolutely, if I can do anything to make you guys feel more special, I will. Let's see. Physically, Andy says physically in Canada, but not in 2 weeks. Lived in 3 different continents. Oh, I can understand sometimes forgetting where you're at. Absolutely, that's awesome. Watch feedbacks for other books in your niche to find out what readers do and do not want. Absolutely, Stacy. That cannot be stressed enough. When it comes to, hold on, we got a little visitor. Come here. Little visitor. Hello. Okay, say goodbye. Anyway, cannot be stressed enough that if you really want your book to be quality, interior, cover, whatever, you need to listen to your readers. And more importantly, even better, is if you listen to other people's readers. So when I was talking about the very first one, it says research your niche, Stacy brings up an excellent point. You need to find out, look at their reviews, and both the 4 or 5-star reviews as well as their 1, 2s, and 3s, and see what they're doing right, and more importantly, what they're doing wrong, what they're missing out on, so you can fill that void. Great point, Stacy. Okay, Jacqueline's in the house. Glad to have you here. Polling people about the covers, absolutely. The lady writes, Katrina, glad to have you here. Glad to see you made it. Andy W has a question. How do you get your audience in the first place before your book is written? A bit like a chicken the egg scenario, and I really struggle with marketing and getting an audience big time. The first thing I do is I've done videos on this, but niche research using I use Publisher Rocket. But if you don't have Publisher Rocket, you can't afford it, completely understand. Just go to Amazon in incognito mode, and you can go down to the drop down in books and just get some ideas. Find out some niches that you think that you're interested in. Getting back to what I was saying before, if you're not interested in it, chances are you're not going to put out a good quality book. And even if you do, you're not going to have the desire to continue with that particular series or that particular genre. And in any genre, in any specific niche, it really is about quantity. I don't necessarily mean putting out thousands of books, but there's so many books out there that it's very difficult to be a one-hit wonder. You need to be consistent, putting out books in a certain some kind of certain pattern, whether it's one book a month, one book a quarter, one book a year, whatever works for you and your writing style and your schedule. But yeah, the first thing you want to do is you want to find a niche that needs books, that has readers. I mean, there's plenty of niches out there that don't have a lot of books out there, but if they have a low BSR or book bestseller ranking on Amazon, then that means people aren't reading it. So just because there's a low competition doesn't mean it's a good niche. So you want to find something that has lower competition, but the books that are there, at least the top 20, have reasonable sales. And what I mean by that is a BSR of, I usually try to shoot like 100,000, maybe, or lower. If it gets too much lower than that, then it becomes like a fist fight, and it's really hard to get your book seen unless you plan on doing a lot of AMS ads or anything like that. Yes, I know I said AMS ads. It'll always be AMS ads for me. And so I hope that answers your question. That's how I find my niches. Again, I use Publisher Rocket just because it's faster. It does everything that you need to do in the Amazon search engine. You do the search, you search a certain title, and then you do, that title with an A at the end, and then a B, and then a C, and then it does all of that for you in Publisher Rocket. And for at least as of the recording of this, for $97 one-time payment, it was a no-brainer for me. But again, if you can't afford that, completely understand. And I would just, like I said, go into Amazon using an incognito window. The reason why I use incognito is so that way Amazon doesn't use your own previous search results and give you some biased feedback. So, and I've done videos on how to do niche research as well. I hope that answers your question, Andy. Let's see. I love Star Wars and the other stuff. Yeah. That just jumped on me. Let's see. So many people in the house loving it. How would you get people engaged in the book by release date? I have a blog, but seriously, it isn't popular. Well, Christine, that's a good question. One thing that you can do is think outside the box, and don't think outside the blog, if you will. Reach out to other blogs in your niche and see about doing a quid pro quo blog exchange. Like, you can guest blog for them, they guest blog for you. You can do that. One of the big ways, like I said, that's why it's so important to start as early as possible in making your audience aware that your book is going to exist. Also, another great way to do it is by putting it on pre-sale. The Amazon has, they've got the normal categories, but they also have new release category. It used to be called hot new release, but now it's just new releases. And any book that's been released in the last 30 days can be in that new release categories. So if your book is in 10 categories and it's been recently released, then within that first 30 days, it's technically can be in those 10 categories plus the new release version of those 10 categories. So that's 20 possible opportunities for your readers to find your book. And again, that's for the ebook as well as for the paperback. So technically 40 different places that they can find your book. So by putting it on pre-order, because again, the new releases is for the 30 days the book is live, your book is actually, if it's on pre-order, will still be on that even longer, because if you put your book on pre-order for 90 days, it'll actually be in those new releases for 90 days, because it'll actually be in it for 120 days, because it'll be for the 90 days of the pre-order, and then the 30 days it's actually live. So again, just more opportunities for people to see your book. They can order it ahead of time and really get the buzz going. But again, nothing is more important than letting people know ahead of time that it exists. So, if you've already written it, then there's really nothing you can do at that point. At that point, it's just your best bet is honestly trying to run some ads. Amazon ads are so easy to run. I shouldn't say easy, but comparably to Facebook ads and BookBub ads and those, comparatively speaking, it's a much easier to navigate, and you can do it with as low as $1 a day budget. And so many times they have Amazon hasn't even come close to spending that dollar for me. But those are some things that you can do to get more awareness of your book. And again, going back to the whole Publisher Rocket, if you have Publisher Rocket, if you use the AMS, he calls it AMS still, I believe, the AMS keyword finder on it, you're allowed up to 1,000 keywords. When you run it, and I'm actually going to do, I plan on doing 4 videos on Publisher Rocket, one for each of the different tabs that they have. If that's something you guys would be interested in seeing, let me know, and I'll bump that up on my to-do list. But anyway, it's gonna put out words and keyword phrases that you may think have absolutely nothing to do with your book. Don't delete them. Use them, because what you may find, because I found it myself, is words and phrases that have really very little to do with my book, is from what I thought, end up having the best conversion rate for people that actually buy my book. And because they're so obscure, the cost per click it might be 2 cents per click. It's ridiculous. So absolutely, if you do have Publisher Rocket, do that. If not, again, just like with the keyword research, you can find words on Amazon and phrases on Amazon and use those. The other thing that I would say is, when it comes to keywords versus AMS keywords, when you put keywords in your keyword slots for your book, you can't use book titles, you can't use author names or anything like that. When it comes to your ads, you absolutely can. And matter of fact, KDP actually suggests it when they give suggestions on what to include on your ads. They include keywords that are for relevant books, authors, titles, products, that kind of stuff. So that's another way where Amazon ads can really help, is because it allows you to target those keywords. Now, keeping in mind, especially if it's a popular author, like if you're doing Stephen King, it's going to cost you quite a bit per click. But that's why I try to go for the low hanging fruit. I try to go with the obscure ones that are still making really good sales. That's how I'm able to get such good cost overall profitability on my ads. That's a long answer to that question, but I hope it helped. Let's see. I have zero audience at this point. Understood it, Andy. Everybody starts off with zero audience, and that's one reason why I highly suggest that in every book, the back of the book, and I even do it on the copyright page, is that you have a link to your email list. That way, if you do get them into your book, you've got a better chance of making them your customer and not Amazon's customer. Let's see. Star Wars, you're a Star Wars fan as well. No, I didn't. Christopher, did I watch the Mandalorian yet? No, I have not. My oldest son, he's 21. He's even more of a Star Wars fan than I am, and he would be sad to hear that. But Let's see. Stacy says he's total geek here. Star Wars, Star Trek. Yeah. Firefly. Yeah, a lot of I'm not a huge Star Trek fan, but I will tell you one of the series that I really was a fan of was it was called The Enterprise. It might have been Enterprise with Scott Bakula. I'm a huge Scott Bakula fan. That actually I did enjoy. See, okay, Stacy asking Christine questions. I love how you guys are chatting back and forth. Jacqueline Rogers in the house. Yeah, the original Star Wars was the best. Just saying. It's very difficult to find a version of the original, like before it was digitalized. Because when they did more in digitalized, they actually made changes to it, which I'm not a fan of. But my nonfiction competition are already well established in this niche. They have a well-oiled marketing machine, and I'm not sure how to compete. I can understand. I mean, obviously, I don't know your specific niche, Andy, but yeah, it can be very difficult to establish yourself in a niche that is already well established. There are a couple things you can do. One thing that I always suggest everybody do is don't just focus on one niche. I know there's a lot of people that say that you absolutely should just dial in on one niche. But I agree to some extent. Yes, you should have consistency, and you want to get better in a niche, and it's easier to get better if you're all in. But the downside to that is if you're all in, it doesn't give you anything to fall back on. So what I always do is I suggest that people have basically a priority list. You have your number one priority niche, and then you've got another sub niche that you can do on the side, and you may use a pen name for that, because again, I want to help you build your business, not just build that one author name. And so in order to build your business, just like you see, other companies, Amazon, for example, I mean, how many different subsidiaries does Amazon have? Not just within, books and stuff like that, but if you're familiar with Twitch, they own Twitch. So, just having different areas of revenue coming in can only benefit you. So that would be the one thing. And then the other is to really, going back to what Stacy had said before, which is read your competition's reviews, especially the negative ones, and find out where they're failing. You'll most likely see some kind of consistent theme, as far as, especially if you check on more than just one of your competition. And the important part is not only to include that to fix that in your book, but use their words to help sell your book. So if they're saying that the storyline wasn't complete enough or whatever, find a way to use that in your sales copy, if you run ads, in your ad copy. So that way, obviously that was a bad example, but if you show them right in front of their face what their pain point is, and then they'll be like, oh, they get me, and then they'll got a better chance of clicking on your book and looking at it further. So I hope that helps, Andy. Omana's in the house. Hello. Andy says, cute puppy. Yeah, that's my daughter's puppy. She's 7 weeks. Let's see. Again, like I mentioned earlier, I'm right at the start of the journey, so any information can be positive. Yeah, absolutely, Terry. Like I said, that just jumped again. If you read even your own negative reviews, if you've got a book out there and you get negative reviews, which if you have negative reviews, don't freak out, because guess what? Stephen King has negative reviews. Even books like It, that Stephen King wrote, that are some say that is his best work ever, he has numerous 1-star reviews. And so don't take it personally. That was one of the hardest things for me, is when I got that first negative review. But anyway, use those negative reviews to help you become a better author, help you become a better creator if you're just doing like no content, low content books. Some of them may just be trolls and they don't really help at all. But you will find some that do help. For example, my very first low content book was a journal, and one of the I think it was a 3-star review I got, maybe 2-star, said that it was just the same. It was too repetitious, and so I actually made a second edition of the book where I threw in some more variety. Now, ironically, the first version still outsells the second version, but that's fine. Let's see. Ooh, this place is going crazy. Loving it, loving it. If I miss your question, just put the word question or capital Q or something in there and put it again, because this place is hopping. I'm loving it. So I may miss one or two. What would invest in social media or Amazon? Not quite sure your question, Jacqueline. If you're asking which I would do Amazon ads first. Facebook ads do work. I've had quite a bit of success with Facebook ads, but the difference is you really have to dial in the audience that you're looking for with Facebook ads. And unfortunately, the more dialed in it is, the more costly it is. So, especially if your audience is females, because just by targeting females on Facebook, you're automatically going to be a higher cost per click. It's just the way Facebook algorithm is. So, I would start with Amazon ads, and Amazon ads are easier, in my opinion, one, because they're less complex, but also because people are on Amazon to buy. People are not on Facebook to buy. People are on Facebook to see what this, the kid in school that they never talked to because they didn't like them and they still don't like them, what they're doing today. They're, to watch cat videos, whatever. That's what they're on Facebook to do. They're not there to sell or to be sold to. And so it's a lot harder to get that sale, and there's a greater chance you're going to spend more money cost per click before you get an actual sale. Whereas on Amazon, people are on Amazon to buy. So they're already in the buying mood. They already have their credit cards out. You just need to get them to buy your book. Let's see. I host a page on Facebook with a following of 430 people internationally. Okay. I'm hoping that will help me with advertising. Absolutely, Terry. Yeah, that can absolutely help. Because not only, even if they're not going to buy your book, you have 430 people that can share your link to your book. Now, obviously, not everybody's going to, but it just, and then if some of their friends and family will do it, and it expands exponentially. And so, just by having a Facebook page or a Twitter following or Instagram, whatever, and I'm on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, but I'll be honest, I really don't do much on those. YouTube is my main social media that I like to use, but I am on Facebook as well, but mainly just active within the groups. So when it comes to Facebook, if you sent me a friend request and I didn't accept it, don't take it personal. I use Facebook for business purposes basically only, and so I just do the social media group or the Facebook groups that I'm in or that I run, and that's pretty much it. Let's see. Okay, Sarah's in the house. Glad to have you here. Really good point about low competition categories. Doesn't necessarily make it a good niche. Exactly. And I've learned that the hard way. So, just because there's low competition, there may be a reason why there's low competition. And don't get me wrong, if it's something new, it could just be that there's not a lot of interest in it yet. So maybe you're ahead of a certain curve, depending. But chances are, if there's a niche that you find that doesn't have a lot of books, like I would say 1,000 or less, and the first 10 or 20 don't have decent BSRs, I would just move on to the next one. Let's see. Okay, again, you guys talk back and forth. Love it, love it. Marketing is the hardest, Ruben says. Yeah, it's difficult. It really is. Especially if you're not, many writers and creators in general are introverts. And so, having to be somewhat of an extrovert and sell goes against our, what we feel comfortable, makes us step outside our comfort zone. And so, yeah, it's very difficult for many authors. But if you want to be successful in this business, it's almost a necessity at this point that you have to at least run ads or something. You have to do something besides just, publish and pray, as some people call it. Don't get me wrong. I've got books out there that I'm not advertising right now. I'm really not advertising much right now because I'm working on some other aspects. So if you look at some of my books, you may see that they've got pretty garbage BSR rankings. But also keep in mind that BSR rankings are short-lived, and also many of my sales that I make are off of Amazon. But yeah, getting back to the point though, yes, you can very easily get, or I wouldn't say easily, but it's very possible to get organic sales. But if you want to start bringing in the 4 figures, 5 figures a month or more with your book sales, you are most likely going to have to do some kind of advertising. So how do I learn if my competition within my niche? Amazon, that's your best bet, Christine. Just whatever your niche is, if it's picture books, or it's if you've got a sub niche and you're doing picture books about animals, then just go into Amazon, picture book, and search for picture books for animals or about animals, whatever your niche is, and those authors, those books that pop up, that's your competition. And especially the first 10 or 20, those are your biggest competition. And so those are the ones you really want to focus in on. Looks like Terry's answering Sarah. Let's see. Andy says, I'm planning to put out another 5 to 10 nonfiction books in the niche in the hopes of building my author brand. Might make it easier to get the marketing going if people see you have a library. Yes, absolutely. If you do have a volume of quality books, it does two things. One, when people search up, if they see just this one book by Andy W., then they may pass it. But if they see 5 or 6 or 10 books by Andy W., then they're like, oh, this guy must know what he's talking about. Now, that said, getting back to the quality aspect, if they read one of them, or they start reading one of them, and it's not what they're looking for, the chances of them reading your other 9 is going to be pretty slim. So making sure that it's, again, quantity as far as showing that you have knowledge in that particular niche, but also quality, so that way they keep coming back for more. And then once you get an email list, it makes it a lot easier, because then you can keep people informed. And I did a video on email marketing last week, or email lists, so I'm not going to go into too much depth, but yeah, so once you have an email list, then you can target these people and let them know, again, early on when you've got a book coming out. You can really get more feedback back and forth, make them feel like they're a part of the decision-making process. Even if you already know what you're going to do, make them think that they're helping. And then again, just like with the Facebook groups or any other kind of group, then when your book goes out, you can absolutely ask people to share it. And you can maybe even do a contest. If whoever, every time you share it, tag me in it. The first person to share X amount, or you're going to do a drawing from everybody that shared it, and you'll give away a copy of the book, something like that. Again, and you can do that even if you don't have an email list. You can do that with your social media following. Understand that you're going to expect to get tagged on a lot of videos or on a lot of posts, and make sure that whatever you promise that you follow through with, because that's the quickest way to shut down an author brand, is to prove to be untrustworthy. So Andy says, great info, thank you. Absolutely. Terry says, paid for advertising. Yeah, so I hope that helps, Terry, as far as the paid for advertising. If you're wondering how much to spend, it really depends on your budget. Like I said, with Amazon ads, you can set a budget for as little as $1 a day. Consider advertising, no matter how good you are at it, as gambling. And what I mean by that is, do not, and I repeat, do not set a budget for money that you cannot afford to lose, for two reasons. One, there is no guarantee that you can have the best copy, you can have the best everything, best keywords, and people just may not buy your book that particular run of ads. But also understand that the way KDP works is you get paid 60 days after they purchase your book, but when it comes to the ads, Amazon's going to take your money now. So it's going to take your money that month. So you have to make sure that you have that money available to possibly lose before you set it as a budget. So just keep that in mind. Let's see. Ooh, Manuel's here from Bangladesh. Awesome. Glad to have you here. Hi there, Keith. Good to catch you live for the first time. All right, Judy, first time live viewer. Awesome. If anybody else here is a first time viewer of the live, make sure you drop a hashtag new. Andy W. How did you get the first and second version available for sale at the same time? Let's see. Not quite sure I think, Andy, what you're talking about is when I was talking about having a first edition. I know what you're talking about when it comes to my journal. I have two editions out. I have a first edition and I have a second edition. They are two completely separate books. I'm not talking about just updating the interior, because the way I updated my interior, and I try not to do that because unless I'm just fixing typos or that kind of stuff. But if I'm making significant changes to the interior, as I did with this particular book, it needs to be its own book, because for one, it gives you another book to sell, but two, it gets very confusing to your readers. They could buy, let's say they bought book version 1, and then they liked it, and it's a journal, which means that it's a consumable. So next year they go to buy another one. If I had just changed the interior and they went to buy it a second time, it would be a completely different book, and I would end up getting negative reviews. So my first edition is the version I put out there. I might have made a couple little minor tweaks as far as, like I said, typos and that kind of stuff. But because the interior is different, and it's even different number of pages, so obviously because of that, the spine's different, everything's different. And so in that aspect, it needs a new ISBN. So absolutely, it's a completely separate book on Amazon. So if you were to search up this book, you would see first edition and second edition. And I make sure that I put the edition for the second edition in I put it in the description as well as in the subtitle, just so that way it's super clear. As well as when I put it into KDP, it asks for the edition, and I put second edition. So there's numerous ways that the reader can see that this is not the original. This is a newer version. And I would say it was about 6 months maybe a year later that I came out with the second edition than the first edition, and I still sell probably 2 to 1 as far as how many I sell of the first one as opposed to the second one. Maybe it's because I've got more reviews on the first one. Maybe just because it's been out there longer. I don't know. Or people check the look inside feature and they just like that continuity as opposed to the different aspects that I put inside the second one. But yes, it's 2 completely different books, edition 1 and an edition 2. I hope that helps. Let's see. Christine question. So how do I learn from my competition within my niche? I think I just answered that. You learn from your competition by reading the reviews of your competition, reading what their readers are saying about their books. I usually spend maybe a couple minutes looking at the 4 and 5 star reviews. I spend a lot more time looking at the 1, 2s, and 3s. Obviously, understanding that, especially on Amazon, many of the 1, 2s, and 3s may not be related to the book. It may be, it took too long to ship, or when it arrived, it was damaged. Obviously, that's not on the author, but yeah. So just focus on what aspects of the 1, 2s, and 3 star reviews of your competition that you can actually make better in your book. You might not be able to. Maybe it's something that is out of your wheelhouse, and so you really can't make it better. But at least you know what they're looking for. So maybe you can make it. Maybe you can address it in other ways, like make up for it. Let's see. Please tell me, how can I increase my sales? It's a good question. I've got a couple videos on that. Basically, shorts. I could do multiple videos on book sales. But basically, it comes down to you need to get more eyes on your book. Again, I'm assuming that you have a high quality book. So if your book is not high quality, then your first focus would be to make that book better. Make your book cover spot on. Make your interior something that your readers would be interested in, or your buyers would be interested in. Assuming that all of that is dialed in, your next thing would be your book description. You want to make sure that it's not like it was years ago, where your book description on Amazon is going to be, basically just a retelling of your story. You can do that in bits and pieces, but think of it more of a movie trailer. So every line needs to get your reader to want to read the next line or want to hit that buy button. So you want to dial in your description. A good way to do that is by using HTML. I did a video where I show you how to make your book description pop using some HTML. You can do that, and then once you've got those down and you've got a good price point, it really just comes down to getting more eyes on your book. And the way to do that is, like I've said before, is to not blast your link on every social media group you're on, because that's a great way to get yourself kicked off those groups, and then you lose that audience. But if you have an audience, you've got people following you, maybe you have an author page, or you have an email list or something like that, share the link. There are a couple Facebook groups where they actually promote, you can promote your link here. You can do that, but I'm going to be honest, it's probably not going to get you any sales. And the reason why is because all that page is there for is other authors sharing their links. They're not there to buy. They're not there to look at your book. They're just there to sell their own stuff. So I would steer away from those kind of things. I would just focus on your niche, focus on your particular audience, and share your book there. And then, like I said, doing ads. Unfortunately, I know everybody hates the word, hates the idea of spending money. And trust me, I am very frugal when it comes to that. But those are your best ways of selling more books. Also, you can do some off-site, some offline sales. I don't know where you're particularly located, but one way I got quite a few sales was my local newspaper. reaching out to your local newspapers, local news outlets. With all the negativity that's in the world, people love to hear the feel good stories. And so to know that there's a local author in their community, people are interested in that. Also, you can go out to local bookstores, depending on what kind of book you write or you create. Like if you do children's books, you might want to be able to go out to some consignment shops, some toy stores, or whatever. So there are a lot of different areas that you can reach out to. But the main point is you need to just get more more people to know your book exists, and that will better your chances of actually getting sales. Mike Hurd just got here. That's fine, Mike. Glad you're here. No, I won't tell anybody you were late. Nobody noticed. No, I'm glad you're here, buddy. I know you're really, really busy. And so the fact that you guys, any of you, took the time to come in and spend some of your time with me, I appreciate it. Let's see. I'll have to catch a replay. That's fine. And as you can see, I actually said this was going to be a short video. But like I said, there's been some great Q&A. So I will be here answering questions and communicating as long as you guys want. Question, Andy says, I'm constantly battling my mindset and confidence about the content written in my books. Is there a content editor or any other ideas to check my content if it's good enough? So I would say if you belong, okay, so if you're doing nonfiction, which I believe, Andy, that's what you said you do, chances are, knowing you've probably already you already are part of at least one or two groups that pertain to that niche. So what I would do is find some network, find someone that is willing to read the first chapter of your book, or even sometimes just something as simple as looking at the table of contents may be enough to tell someone whether you're on the right track or not. And just offer that you would do that for them, especially if they're already an author. You'll review theirs, they'll review yours. You don't have to read the entire content to know whether you're on the right page or not. So that's what I would do. Accountability partners are really great for that. I've done videos on accountability partners before. Honestly, not really one of my biggest videos as far as like popularity. It's I would say one of the most underrated video that I have, one of the most. And it's accountability partners. They're great for things like this, like helping you out, but also by kind of lighting a fire under you, making sure that you're sticking to your goals that you said you're going to. By holding each other accountable, you're both staying on point more, and that definitely I have found helps a great deal, because it's easy. Let's say losing weight. It's a lot easier to say you're losing weight and to try to lose weight if someone knows you're trying to lose weight and they're like, hey, are you supposed to be eating that kind of stuff? That's what an accountability partner is basically for, but for writing. So if you say that you are going to get a book done by next month, and you tell your accountability partner, they may check in with you every couple of days and say, hey, how's that book coming? How's chapter 1? So accountability partners are good for that, as well as someone like a mastermind where you can just shoot ideas back and forth. Does this even make sense? Should I even include this in my book? So that's another thing you could do if you do belong, Andy, to some groups within your niche. Think about creating a mastermind. The worst thing I've found with people that do masterminds is you never want to be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, then at that point it's not a mastermind, you're just teaching. And which there's nothing wrong with teaching, but if you're in there for a mastermind, you want to grow, you want to learn while you're helping other people learn. So you never want to be the smartest person in a mastermind, in my opinion. So I hope that helped. Christine, #new. Glad to have you here. See, Steve Martin, #new. Awesome. Andy says thumbs up. Awesome wisdom being shared. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah, if you do like it, thumbs up. Give it a thumbs up. If you don't, hey, give it a thumbs down. Let me know what I'm doing wrong. It looks like those are all the questions. Anybody have any last questions, comments, or concerns? All right. Well, if anything comes up afterward, obviously I still check my alerts. Make sure you leave it in the chat, leave it in the comments. Now, I will say, have you ever found yourself falling short on your self-publishing goals? I did a video a little while back where I talked about just that. So I'm going to include that video as well. I'll include it in the show notes, and when this goes on replay, it'll probably be over to the side right there. So until next time, I'm Keith Wheeler, and remember to write right.